universe?
Genesis says the Earth and the universe were created in 6 days. Science says it took some 15 or 16 billion years. The Bible seems to be at complete odds with science. It's just another religious mythology spun by the ancients to explain the unknowable.
And Dad, what is the biggest doubt most people have when it comes to believing the Bible?
It's Genesis, the idea that the heavens and the earth were created in 6 days when all of science says otherwise.
Follow me.
So I think I'm like a lot of people. I believe in a creator, but the conflict between the Bible and science has kept me from a total commitment to my Jewish faith.
It's those first 6 days, the first 31 verses of the Bible, you just can't get past.
You either accept the Bible or believe science. What's the answer? Is it 6 days or 16 billion years?
You can't have it both ways.
Until now. Like I said, Carrie brought me an idea, and Lynn and JT worked with me on it, and we asked Professor Campbell and Dr. Tolley to go over what we found. Something we're now calling the Genesis Code. I think that now we can show you.
Drum roll, please.
I think the answer to the question of is the Bible right or is science right? And it's that both are absolutely correct.
This ought to be good.
Oh, it is.
So now, let's play some football! Yes, Dad. Okay, you be the quarterback right there. Dr. Tolley, you be the left end of the offensive line. Chase, you're the center. Tyler, you're the right end of the line. Lynn, you be there and be the running back. And the defensive line, Professor Campbell, Shane, and Carrie over here. Carrie, my lady. You be the left end of the line here. Okay.
I want you to get a crack at you, Tyler.
Go for it, Carrie.
Blake, you be the middle linebacker. And JT, my man, you are the safety. Okay, this is good, this is good. Okay, Dad, so this is going to Peyton, sorry. It is going to be a running play to the right. So you're going to pitch it or lateral it over here to Lynn, okay? Here we go. Hey! Peyton Manning takes the snap. Oh, it's a pitch to Joseph Young. He's trying to turn the right corner, and oh my gosh, what happened? Oh, personal foul on number Carrie.
I want to take out the red handkerchief and review that, please.
Okay, well, while the referees go under the hood, let's take a look at what happened.
What happened is Carrie punched Tyler in the heart.
I mean, the play itself. Dad, I'm sorry, Peyton.
Thank you.
Describe the play.
Well, I lateraled to my running back, and she tried to make her way around the right side of the line.
And Blake, you were the defensive linebacker. What did you see?
Di tried to run around the left end of our line.
You saw it going to the right, and you saw it going to the left.
So who's right?
We both are. We both described what we saw.
You saw the same events in different ways. Why?
I saw it from my perspective on defense, and Reverend Wells saw it from his on offense.
This is an example of 2 different frames of reference.
This is an essential part of what we are discussing here today.
Hey, Mark, I'm gonna need an X-ray. Can we get
Well, how about some Gatorade instead, my friend, okay? Get out. Boom.
This is Paddington. The car is Paddington's frame of reference. From where Paddington sits, driving along the road, trees and buildings and everything along the highway all appear to be moving, while he is stationary. This is Albert. He is standing along the road. He is in a different frame of reference than Paddington, who is in his car. From Albert's frame of reference, it is Paddington who is moving.
Is this idea of 2 different frames of reference, with one frame accelerating in reference to another, where all this becomes interesting?
Time itself is actually different for observers in different frames of reference when one frame is in motion relative to another.
Right, and at lower normal speeds, the difference is imperceptible.
But as the speed approaches the speed of light, the impact is overwhelming.
Follow me.
So you're saying the greater the speed within one frame of reference to another, the slower time passes in the accelerating frame?
Yes! And gravity has the same effect on time as does speed.
And see, time passes more slowly in a given frame of reference where the force of gravity is greater than in another frame with weaker gravity.
Now, how about the universe?
Scientists used to believe the universe was steady state.
Go outside at night and look up at the stars. There they are, right where they were last night, and the night before, and the night before that.
Steady state. The universe had always been here and always would be, forever.
And time. We all knew what time was. It was the ticking of the clock, always the same. One day to the next, the same. Here, on the moon, across the universe, today, 1,000 years ago. Let's go.
And time. Time was a constant that had nothing to do with anything else.
Time moved forward from today to tomorrow and on, always forward and at the same speed. Tick, tock, tick, tock.
And then along came Albert Einstein, and everything changed.
I knew this was gonna be a physics class. I knew it, man. Learning is rough.
Does everyone know the Big Bang Theory?
Ooh.
Yes, Tyler.
It is a TV show about two really nerdy dudes live next door to this really hot chick who, it's about these two really nice guys and a really pleasant girl.
It's a great TV show, Tyler, but I'm actually talking about the other Big Bang.
We have a little computer imagery to show you what it was.
In the beginning, there was nothing. The universe did not exist. No planets or stars, not even empty space, nothing.
Not even time.
And out of this complete nothing was a flash, and a speck was formed, no bigger than a mustard seed.
And in that tiny speck was all of everything that ever would be.
And that speck expanded at hundreds of millions of miles per hour.
It was a ball of pure energy, dense and massive, beyond imagination.
And the temperature was in the trillions of degrees.
A mass of pure plasma expanding at the speed of light. Everything that ever would be. I mean, the material from which everything exists today. The planets and the stars, all living things. Time and space itself was created at that moment.
And this was good news for Bible thumpers like me and Dad because science was saying that there was a beginning, just like it says in the Bible.
Of course, the bad news was the Bible said this all happened in 6 days.
This idea of the Big Bang all came about as a result of Einstein's theories of relativity, where he established that in the physical sciences, nothing was absolute. Everything was relative to everything else.
Even time.
Time is relative to speed. It's a concept in physics we call time dilation.
I'd imagine you've all heard this example. Imagine Lynn and JT are twins living here on Earth. I know, weird, right? And Lynn boards a spaceship and flies off traveling near the speed of light to some faraway star. JT stays here on Earth. Now for Lynn, the trip takes about a year. But when she returns to Earth, she finds that JT has aged nearly 20 years. Oh no.
For me, traveling at near the speed of light, time passed more slowly than it did for JT waiting here on Earth.
Ooh, like that one W.C. Fields joke where he's like, Philadelphia, it's a wonderful town. Spent a week there one night, right?
No, it's not something that seemed to be. And it's not that her clock just ran more slowly, it's that less actual time elapsed for Lynn as she traveled near the speed of light.
Think of it this way. For an object at rest, time passes as we are accustomed. As the object begins to accelerate and as its speed approaches the speed of light, the amount of time that passes decreases.
The passage of time is relative to speed, as Lynn said, time dilation.
Are we done with all the physics stuff?
You like this next part, Tyler? Yes! Dun, 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 dun.
So this time dilation thing, it's like the Star Trek movie, right? Is that what he's saying? Like when young Spock meets old Spock. Just like that, yeah. That was weird. That was so weird, but I didn't think that was a real thing. That's a movie thing, right? No, that happens. Oh.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the planetarium. Please have a seat over here. Remain seated. Dermen sentaros, por favor.
Together, another visual to show you what we mean by time dilation.
We took some footage from an old sci-fi movie and created this little clip.
Please enjoy yourselves, get comfortable, and lean your seats back. Imagine this is the bridge of a starship on a mission of deep space exploration. A mission to the very center of our Milky Way galaxy, where most scientists now believe we will find a supermassive black hole. The black hole at the center of our Milky Way was once a star with a mass estimated to be some 2.5 million times that of our own sun.
When that star collapsed, all of its mass was condensed into a tiny spot in space of infinite density, the size on the scale of a grain of sand.
This is called a singularity, and the gravitational attraction it exerts is so powerful that nothing, not even light itself, can escape. Hence the name black hole.
The commander of the starship has sent one of his smaller survey craft to explore the black hole. Let's call the commander of the survey craft Captain Chen.
Can I be the commander of the starship?
Sure, why not?
Cool.
Commander Chase on the starship is watching Captain Chen on the bridge of the survey craft as it approaches the event horizon.
That's the edge.
The edge of the black hole. As Commander Chase and his helmsman look across at the bridge of the survey craft through their monitor,
Looking into one frame of reference from another.
That's right. Yes.
Chase and his helmsman see the movements of Chen and her crew are slowing down. They now seem to be in slow motion. But for Captain Chen, everything is normal. She will log the results of her mission into her ship's computer and then take her survey craft back to the coordinates where she expects to find the parent starship. But it's not there.
They will hail another passing ship and experience a startling revelation.
Those to whom Captain Chen will ultimately give the report of her 1-hour survey at the edge of the black hole will be the distant descendants of her starship mate. During the 1 hour described by Captain Chen, the clocks of these descendants will have recorded the passage of thousands of years.
During what Captain Chen and her crew experienced as the passage of 1 hour at the event horizon, thousands of years have elapsed in the space they occupied prior to their trip to the black hole.
As I said earlier, this is time dilation, the effect of increased gravity slowing the passage of time, just as does speed.
For an object in a zero or low gravity environment, time passes as we are accustomed. As the force of gravity on an object increases, the passage of time narrows. Time slows down. To sum it up, time is not fixed or constant.
Time, or the passage of time, is affected by speed and by gravity.
The greater the speed or the greater the force of gravity, the slower the passage of time.
There is also one more thing that affects the passage of time.
That is the stretching of space itself. Here, I could use your help, Tyler. Come here.
Ooh,
Come up here, it'll be fun. How's the chest?
A little dizzy and nauseous.
Pull this up.
Looks like they finally found a way to use some of your hot air there, Tyler.
Pull it up a little more. Okay, hold it there. Hold it there. Okay, now science tells us that the instant of the Big Bang, everything that ever would be the universe and anything in it
Including time and space itself.
was compressed to a speck the size of a mustard seed. Now, as the universe expands, galaxies form. So think of the black dots on the balloon as galaxies, and the balloon itself as the universe. Now notice, as the universe expands, the distance between the dots, the galaxies, it increases.
There's no more of anything. No more matter or space or time.
It's just the distance between what there is increasing.
Space itself is stretching.
And as space stretches, so does time.
Just as time is affected by speed and by gravity, it is also affected by the stretching of space.
But the stretching of space affects time from one moment to another, rather than just from one place to another.
And this brings us back to Genesis and the quandary of 6 days or 16 billion years.
Can I keep the blunt?
Sure, Tyler. Now, in order to understand these first 6 days, we need to identify the frame of reference in which they unfold. How, Dad, is the story of Genesis conveyed to man?
Well, depending on who you believe, the first 5 books of the Bible, including Genesis, were given directly to Moses by God, or God inspired certain others to write those books.
So the source of the story of the first 6 days, directly or indirectly, is God.
Yes.
So Genesis is told through God's perspective, from his, scientifically speaking, frame of reference, like Peyton Manning or Blake in our football game.
Yeah, that's correct.
So, just what was God's frame of reference?
God's frame of reference when telling the story has to be somewhere not affected by local distortions.
Like speed or gravity?
Yes, and that somewhere has to be the universe itself, the total universe, the cosmos, not some isolated locality within it.
So the question is, how does time unfold in this cosmic frame of reference? How is it recorded?
To understand that, we must first define what a clock really is.
Quite simply, a clock is anything that repeats itself periodically and where the rhythm of those repeating cycles can be used to denote the passage of time. That's like straight from the dictionary. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock.
A clock is not something that creates time. A clock only records the passage of time.
So the cosmic clock that God uses to relate his time of creation to man is what?
The answer is simply light. Light is the only constant in the universe. It provides a method of measuring the passage of time in the cosmos.
Light can be used as a cosmic clock to measure the passage of time by any change in the wavelength or cycle or frequency of light.
The distances between the crests of the light wave.
Ding, that's right.
We'll skip all the math involved.
I mean, this, you'd like us to, I mean, I'd be happy to go through the detail.
Mark, it's fine.
We're good.
Okay, then let's just say that science has proven this by measuring the stretching of the wavelength of the light from the sun compared to the wavelength or frequency of the same light created on Earth.
The results confirm the predictions made by Einstein and by the theory of time dilation,
In order to compare time today with time at the Big Bang,
and the passage of time between then and now,
there has to be a source of light which exists today that also existed at the time of the Big Bang.
This light source was found in 1964 by accident when two astronomers discovered what's called cosmic background radiation, or CBR.
This is a residual radiation left over from the time of the Big Bang.
and it fills all space today as it did then.
The property of the CBR, which make it the perfect cosmic clock, is the change that has occurred in the wavelength of the decaying ash between the moment when matter first was formed following the Big Bang and now.
At that Big Bang moment, the temperature in that initial plasma mass was nearly 11 trillion degrees, and the frequency of what is now CBR corresponded.
The original frequency of the CBR was some 3 trillion cycles per second.
As the universe cooled and expanded, space stretched, and with it, the wavelength of the CBR.
Today, that CBR is cooled to only 2.73 degrees Kelvin, and the wavelength to some 3 cycles per second.
The ticking of this cosmic clock has slowed from 3 trillion cycles per second to 3 cycles per second. The stretching of space and time as the universe has expanded, in turn, stretched the distance between the wave crests of the CBR.
The passage of time just after the Big Bang occurred at a rate 1 trillion times faster than it does today.
So God telling the story of the first 6 days to Moses, he was telling it from his frame of reference.
He told it based on the passage of time reflected by the cosmic clock.
God related to Moses what happened on each of the 6 days of Genesis based on the passage of time as kept by the cosmic clock as it recorded the passage of time as it occurred.
There's a simple formula which can be used to break the rate of change in the passage of cosmic time down into steps.
But in doing this rate of change, the amount of time passing will be seen from our local frame of reference, our perspective, here on Earth today, in the future.
Yes, we will be looking back in time, measuring time by our clocks today.
Our clocks that run 1 trillion times slower than the cosmic clock just after the Big Bang.
Yeah, exactly.
With every doubling in the size of the universe from the instant of the Big Bang until the time of Adam, the stretching of the wavelength of the CBR reflects a slowing of the passage of time by 1/2.
Obviously, each doubling in the size of the universe takes longer than the previous doubling. Each doubling expansion has twice as far to go.
Whatever that means.
Now, we are going to break this universe expansion up into 6 steps.
We are calling these steps pots.
It's a term we coined meaning passages of time.
Each pot reflects the passage of time from the Big Bang to now, with each of the 6 doublings in the size of the universe and 1 trillion times stretching in the size of the universe. The first of these 6 pots, looking back and based on our time today, would reflect the passage of 8 billion years.
Let's assume Paddington was there right after the Big Bang and saw the events of the first pot as they occurred. All of that information would be wrapped up inside the coils of this slinky. The universe expands. Space and time stretch 1 trillion times. The extended distance between the coils of this slinky indicating that stretch.
And now Paddington comes up and tells Albert about the events of that first pot.
He describes these events as they took place in their original time frame, one day. But as Albert looks back, he sees those events from the perspective of today's clock, a clock that runs 1 trillion times slower than the original cosmic clock used by Paddington. He sees these events unfolding with the passage of 8 billion years, which reflects the stretching of space and time.
With an adjustment in the logarithmic scale, the second of the pots would reflect the passage of 4 billion years.
And then 2 billion and 1 billion and so on.
Add up the length of time reflected by these 6 pots as seen from our current perspective, and you have 15.75 billion years as the age of our universe, or 6 days as measured by the cosmic clock.
And this is a scientific observation based on proven science reflecting the same period of time as it occurred in the 2 different frames of reference. The time as it unfolded based on the cosmic clock, and the amount of time as measured by today's clocks, measured by today's time computation.
What God described to Moses and what Moses described to the next person using the passage of time are from different frames of reference, different perspective.
God telling Moses the story of the 6 days of Genesis is like Captain Chen relating the events of her 1-hour survey at the edge of the black hole to people whose clocks had marked the passage of thousands of years during the same 1-hour period.
And you might just find this to be an interesting quirk, except for one thing.
Let's look at what science says actually happened during each of these pots and compare them to the 6 days of Genesis.
Dad, if you could summarize for us the first day of Genesis.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was without form and was void. And the darkness was over the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God hovered over the surface of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light."
Are there some points that need to be clarified?
Yeah, 3 really. You need to understand something of Hebrew to understand the book of Genesis. First of all, in the ancient Hebrew language, there is no word for universe. Secondly, the waters are really representing everything that there was. And darkness is a symbol for a state of chaos.
Dr. Tolley, day 1 would have started 15.75 billion years ago and ended 7.75 billion years ago. What does science say happened on Earth during this time period?
At the instant of the Big Bang, everything that would ever be, everything that would constitute the quarks, protons, neutrons, electrons, from which everything that now exists, as well as time and space itself, were created. The Earth only existed in the form of stardust that would later congeal into the planet. As to the verse, "Let there be light," you need to go back to your Big Bang video and correct something. The name Big Bang conjures up the impression of this brilliant explosion and flash of light, like an atomic bomb. That's how this event is generally pictured, but it's not accurate. From the initial moment of creation, and as the universe initially expanded, it was a ball of plasma of such incredible heat and density and gravitational forces that no light could have escaped. Initially, there was no light at all, just a swirling opaque mass of pure energy. It was only when this primordial, primal mass had cooled and expanded to a point where the gravitational forces were reduced enough to permit electromagnetic radiation to escape that there would have been light.
So, let there be light is clearly a separate event from the initial creation in both the Bible and science?
Yes. And during the remainder of that first 8 billion year period, the early stars and galaxies formed.
Dad, day 2.
Day 2, the heavens as we know them were created, and the chaos that would eventually become the earth was separated from the rest of creation.
Dr. Tolley, Cosmic Clock Day 2, what happened during this time period?
Our own galaxy, the Milky Way, formed, as did our sun and planet Earth in its earliest carnation.
Daddy, day 3.
The oceans and the dry land appeared, as well as the first forms of plant life.
Professor Campbell, we're in your arena now. What does science say happened on Earth between 3.75 billion years ago and 1.75 billion years ago?
Well, some 3.8 billion years ago, the Earth cooled, liquid water formed. Almost immediately, first plant and animal life, photosynthetic algae, bacteria appear.
Back to you, Dad. Day 4.
Day 4, the sun, the moon, and the stars appeared.
Same time period, Professor. 1.75 billion years ago and 750 million years ago.
Well, initially, in the first part of this period, atmosphere on Earth would have been nearly opaque. Then with the rising concentrations of oxygen, the atmosphere would have become translucent. And then the sun, the moon, and the stars would have appeared for the first time from the surface of the Earth.
Dad, day 5.
Day 5, life is created in the oceans and the first reptiles and birds.
Professor, 750 million to 250 million.
Well, initially, sea life would have been dominant, and then came the Cambrian era. Cambrian explosion, about 530 million years ago, when every species of land animal literally appeared at the same time.
So instead of a tree of life, it was more like a bush of life.
Touche, Carrie.
And the Bible in day 6?
Day 6, the land animals become dominant, and God created man in his own image.
250 million years ago into the appearance of Adam.
Well, 250 million years ago, there was a mass extinction. 90% of the life on Earth followed by a rapid repopulation, mammals, land animals predominating, and...
That was the Permian-Triassic event. Depending on how you define them, there have been between 5 and 20 ELLIs, or extinction-level events.
Like in the Tia Leone Morgan Freeman movie, Deep Impact. But I didn't think that was a real thing. That's a movie thing, right? No, that happens.
Anyway, about 35 million years later, around 250 million years ago, the dinosaurs appeared and dominated life on Earth for about 150 million years. Then, 65 million years ago, another ELLI, this one known as the KT extinction, killed off the dinosaurs and opened the way for mammals and birds to become the dominant land animals.
then the first hominids.
And finally, human beings as we know them today appeared. Now, isn't it true that at the time Genesis was written, there was no awareness of any of the scientific stages that you and Dr. Tully described?
Well, at that time, Carrie, most people thought the Earth was flat.
Today, the cosmic clock continues to tick, to measure the passage of time at the level of the cosmos. And as the universe continues to expand, the rate at which it measures time continues to slow.
But that doesn't mean anything to us now. From the moment God breathed the neshama of life into Adam, when God gave man his soul, we on Earth have denoted the passage of time by our Earth-based clocks.
Where 1 second is part of 1 day, which reflects the rotation of the Earth on its axis, and a year that marks the completion of 1 Earth circuit of the sun.
You said God told the story of Genesis to Moses, or that it was written down by others inspired by the word of God, but what if there just isn't any God?
The idea that Moses or anyone else at the time Genesis was written, a time that Bob reminded us just a minute ago, when most people believed that the world was flat, could have created a story that so perfectly reflects what science has now proven to be true, all on its secular own. To believe that, for me anyway, is harder than to believe in God.
But isn't that the same thing as the old day-age argument?
No, not really. The day-age or concordist interpretation is an attempt to rationalize the Genesis story and reinterpret the words that the original authors used when they presented the 6 days of creation.
There is no science to back that up. I mean, what we are talking about here today is a result of applying proven science to the issue. This is a scientifically derived answer to the question with no spin or subjective interpretation. So you see, science and its 15.75 billion years and the 6 days of Genesis are in complete accord. Science has proven what religious leaders have been unable to prove for thousands of years.
Spoken like the scientist you are, Mark. But in reality, science has just caught up with the truth of the Bible. Science has simply deciphered the Genesis code.
I think what I find most amazing about this is the uncanny brilliance of biblical Genesis, which is presented to us in such a way that mankind has to evolve to its current level before we're able to understand the story as it was originally written.